all the way down there.
Okay.
So I have to make sure
A
you
minute to get your stuff out. All right. I will call the meeting to order then. This is the May 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting of the Milford Board of Education. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Sorry for the late start, but there's a lot of cars outside because of the police academy graduation, so we had some board members looking for parking places. I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Fieser for our one agenda item regarding budget adoption.
Thank you, Mrs. Glennon. Good evening, members of the board. So the good thing is that we're here to finalize the budget, which is terrific after a long process. So as you all know, I submitted a proposed budget to you in January, and then on January 20th, you had already held several workshops and heard from the public and discussed yourselves and made a proposed budget for $91,786,950. On March 2nd, we met with the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance recommended a reduction of the board's proposed budget by $175,000. And then on May 12th, we went before the Board of Aldermen. And I shouldn't say we went before, we actually had gone before them in April, but in May, they adopted a budget for the city of Milford, and it included the $175,000 reduction that had been recommended by the board. And as, just so all the board members, I believe you know this, you ultimately make the decision on the budget. So while the Board of Finance and even the Board of Aldermen recommended what money should be reduced from the budget for that $175,000, it's really your choice. Having said that, we really have followed what was recommended for the cuts. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Richatelli if he would speak to the specifics of those.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Fieser, Mrs. Glennon, members of the board. In your package, you have a synopsis entitled Recommended Line Item Reductions. And to follow up on what Dr. Fieser said, the Board of Finance in their deliberations and their discussion identified 3 areas where they felt that the Board of Education budget could be cut. And that totaled $175,000 that Dr. Fieser just talked about. And so those areas that they identified, again, they can't dictate, nor can the Board of Aldermen, only your board can, but the ones that they identified were $40,000, and this is on your synopsis sheet, $40,000 that would be eliminated from the SRO line. That's account number 3305. And as you know, we have an agreement with the city that for our school resource officers, the board will pay half of the cost and the city will pay half of the cost. So your recommended budget included half of the dollars for an additional SRO, but the city's budget did not include that. And so the Board of Finance felt that $40,000 could be eliminated from our budget because the city was not going to match the $40,000 for the SRO on the city side. The other 2 items were in the 4000s accounts. The 4101, the natural gas, as we presented to you back in January, and as we presented to the Board of Finance, the budget, the 15-16 budget, contained an error on our part. And so that caused a shortfall in the 15-16 budget, which then follows through into the 16-17 proposed budget in order to make up the difference. And so we made the argument to the Board of Finance. We gave them the explanation, and in the end, they simply said that they think we can do with $85,000 less in natural gas. We respectfully disagreed with them then, and we continue to disagree with them now. We believe that we made a strong case and we showed them the dollars, but at any rate, they recommended, or they identified $85,000 that could be cut from account 4101, the natural gas line. And lastly, 4104, the energy conservation services. As you know, we recommended, and your board's budget contained $100,000 for us to continue the energy infrastructure improvements for our district so that we can continue the strong record that we have for energy conservation. But they felt that that could be cut in half, and so they recommended a cut of $50,000. So in all, the reduction that they recommended and the Board of Aldermen ultimately recommended was $175,000. So now it's up to administration to recommend to your board, and you have the ultimate say on where that $175,000 reduction will come from. And what we're recommending to the board is that indeed we would reduce $40,000 from account 3305, which is the security services, and that would be the elimination of one school resource officer. We are recommending that $50,000 be cut from the energy conservation line. And what that will mean is we will have $50,000 less in energy conservation that we believe we can leverage those dollars to get more savings in the future. But the current budget, the 15-16 budget, contains $125,000, and with this additional $50,000, we'll be able to do more. We just won't be able to do as much as we thought, but we will do that. And so we're recommending that $50,000 be cut from that line item. Lastly, we do not believe that the $85,000 can be cut from the natural gas line. But as we reported to you at previous meetings, the gasoline prices and the diesel prices for our buses, the city had a new round of bidding, and our bid price came in substantially lower than the amount that was included in your budget. To the tune of, we had budgeted at $2.72, and the bid price came in at $1.42. So there's a considerable savings that we're going to recognize in the diesel and gasoline line, and so we would propose to you that the $85,000 that was identified as a cut to natural gas not be taken out of natural gas, but instead be taken out of the account 5107 gasoline and bus. And so with that, I mean, they're fairly simple. We've had years where there's dozens of accounts that we needed to recommend alters to, but this year it's fairly straightforward. I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you have. And we recommend that you ultimately adopt the budget in the amount of $91,611,950 with those adjustments made as we just presented.
So questions? Yes, Ms. Federico?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to administration. First of all, thank you, Jim. I appreciate the thorough explanation. And I do understand that it's the board's discretion about where they want to actually make the cuts. The Board of Finance only makes the recommendations, but I think I agree that on the first two, there really isn't any other place to take it from. And I'm pleased to see that we can take the natural gas cut in the gasoline diesel line instead. My question is around the energy conservation services. So just to be clear, that's money that we would spend that would have savings in the long run, right? So we anticipate it's going to save us more than it's going to cost in the long run?
Correct. We would use that money to invest in energy infrastructure that, and we would expect that, first of all, we would use that money to get incentives from the utility companies. And so what we can spend, what we can do with $125,000, or in this case $50,000, we can get incentives from the UI so we can actually purchase or do much more than the $50,000.
Okay.
And in the long run, we believe that our return on investment will be a very short return on investment by investing in energy infrastructure. We're going to save money in the long run.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, sometime between now and next year's budget, I assume in next year's budget, we'll want to try to get some money for energy conservation again. Maybe we could have some more like concrete examples. This is what we can do with $50,000. This is what we would spend it on, and this is approximately how much it would save us. Maybe that could help us from having it not get cut next time. Obviously, that's a little ways off, but that's just what I'm thinking. Would be
No, your
helpful.
point is very well taken. In fact, we do now have, in concrete, we've actually signed a contract for the energy conservation program with $125,000, and then we'll build on it with $50,000. But we'll give you all the particulars. The board asks us to present an energy update each year, and we'll give you all the particulars of what that program includes, as well as we just went out to RFQ, request for qualifications, for a solar energy developer. So we're going to embark on a very aggressive solar power program on all of our schools.
Okay.
It's an ideal time right now because there are still, and I won't dwell on this, right, but I'm just going to give you a little preview of what you'll hear when we do give the energy report. It's an ideal time right now because there are still substantial monies available through the state of Connecticut for solar power programs. And in addition, we have all new roofs, or we're going to have all new roofs on our schools, and that's one of the prerequisites of putting solar on the roofs, is you need to have a roof that's not going to need to be repaired anytime soon. And since all of our schools will have new roofs, or within the last 4 years have new roofs, it's a perfect time to go out for this solar program.
Okay.
And we expect that that's going to save us substantial dollars in the future.
Okay. Is there a set time of year that we would have that update, or it's to be scheduled?
December.
Yeah.
December?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I look forward to hearing more about it.
Any other questions? Mr. Hagedorn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Didn't natural gas just go down again? That's, I was just wondering what we budgeted for, because I heard it just dropped again, so I'm sure there's gonna be monies left over from what we budgeted if it dropped again from what we were looking at.
Well, the price of natural gas did go down, but we're locked in. We have
Oh, okay, we locked in
price.
with natural gas, so that was my question.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha on there. Good thought.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll have a motion from Mr. Bias.
All right, I make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves the budget for 2016-2017 in the amount of $91,611,950 with line item adjustments as recommended by the administration.
There's a second.
A second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
So with the other piece of the budget, we
Oh, right,
always
okay,
bring
yep, go ahead.
forward at this time of the year, just an update as to where we are with the enrollment. Literally as of, I think, 5 o'clock this afternoon, and then moving forward, and then also how we are reducing the positions in the budget that we committed to reducing. So let me turn the enrollment discussion over to Mr. Burt, since he's been working very closely with this. And you want to speak to this?
Sure, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. If I could turn your attention to the last page with the staffing changes memo, I'll give you an overview. One of the things we're unable to provide you tonight is very specific information from buildings, from departments, et cetera, because we are still working with contract and teachers. And in some cases, we have not informed individual teachers. So we can give you a broad overview of where we expect to find these reductions. I can tell you this, we are hopeful that a majority of these reductions will be found through resignations or retirements. But we're not excluding the fact that there might be some other layoffs associated with this. In general, as in said in the budget, we have a total reduction of 14.5, 11 of which are from regular education and 3.5 from special education. Again, the high-level breakdown for the regular ed, we are anticipating 5 at the secondary level, 4 at the elementary level, and 2 of those are not reductions, but we're moving them off of the local budget to be covered by the tuitions for the Ready to Learn program. And in terms of the other 3.5, as you can see, we're looking for that in the special education department, one of which is for the teacher of deaf, which we no longer need this time, and then 2.5 at the secondary level in special education. So if you want to turn back to the front page, and as Dr. Fieser said, as of today, we are seeing an ever-shifting numbers in each of the buildings. So right now, to be honest, this is where we are. As you can look, one of the things I want to point out to you is the red 4 down there. Again, that's our anticipated reduction. Right now, we can't zero in on very specific grade levels or buildings because, just to give you an example, from Friday to today in kindergarten for Orchard Hills, under that K actually enrolled, it went from 37 to 42 since Friday. So we originally had 2 sections there, at a 37 or 38, we're talking about 18 or 19 per class. With the 42, we're up to a 21 average. So we're going to be monitoring this as we progress through the next couple weeks, and in some cases through the summer. We know that some of our buildings get enrollment all the way through the first day of school. But we are going to, the ones that we know that we can lock in, we will soon. And then we're going to have to just monitor this as we progress through the summer.
What are the cut scores? Because I noticed the 45 number of students, then most of the places have 2 faculty, and at Orange Ave there are 3 faculty. So what are the cut scores?
That's a great question, and you can see in kindergarten is the one where we have the least amount of information, and which has been going up and down, frankly, over the past week. So right now we're maintaining 2 to 3 sections, around that 21 number. As we get into first and second grade, we try to keep those numbers under 20. Has been a tradition here in Milford. And as we get into grades 3, 4, and 5, typically we try to keep it in the 22, 23 range, from what I understand. However, there are certain times when we have a high needs group, and we do work with individual principals to say this is a particular group that needs some additional help, and we will look to lower those section numbers.
So if I could add to that, so for example, if you look at CAF Penn, grade 4, they're at 48 and they have 24 in each class. The guideline is up to 24, and we don't generally like to do 24, but right at this moment, we're not willing to say, absolutely, we're hiring a new teacher immediately. Because what we don't know is whether some of the other classes are going to shoot up and actually demand an additional teacher. Because we have some that are kind of on the threshold here. And Mr. Burt gave an, I mean, we have the 2 kindergarten classes that are sitting at 21 each. That's actually over the guideline from the board. But there again, even, we didn't say automatically we're going to put another teacher in, because what we don't know is that, for example, are there families that are going to be moving in the next month or, 2 months?
I just didn't know if you had a cut score where you then automatically start to shift people around.
Well, the board guidelines are up to 20 for kindergartens and through second grade, and then 21 to 24 for grades 3, 4, 5. It just becomes difficult when you're dealing with smaller numbers of sections in the schools. Do you automatically then add a teacher and then you drop your average enrollment to maybe 13 kids in a classroom, and meanwhile you have another class that has 24 kids in it. So that's part of what we're just sort of, monitoring. What we're hoping is that by in the next few weeks, most of this will settle down. We know there's a couple of schools where there still will be a lot of kids coming in over the summer, particularly Meadowside and Pumpkin, because we watch historically how many kids come in over the summer and which schools they come into. So there's no absolute fast rule that automatically we just say, oop, one over, we're going to hire another teacher.
And it's not contractual, it's just a guideline. If I may too, I would add that going back to the K-5 configuration, it decreases your economy of scale. So it actually, in terms of just sheer class size and numbers, it's a less efficient way to do business.
Sure. And then the other unknown factor this year is St. Gabriel's. So we have, interestingly enough, picked up, not a whole lot, but some registrations over the last 2 weeks that have come in. And there again, depending upon the grade level, so 3 kids could register, for example, for Kennedy, if we wanted to say in, well, let's see, where would we put 3 kids? If we put them, into grade 2, so then you're up to 39 kids, that's grade 2. If we get 2 more, do they go over? I mean, it's that kind of a thing. So that will not be a factor next year, but it is a factor this year.
The other thing I'd like to point out, if you look at the K actually enrolled bottom, all the way at the bottom of the column there, you have 359. We anticipated somewhere around 400, so we're, potentially have 40 additional students registering. So that is something we are paying attention to.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
And the page in the middle school
Sorry,
and high
there you
school?
go.
Yep.
Second page. Again, this is just basically enrollment. We don't break out by subject, by class other than this. So again, we're anticipating 5 reductions at this level.
The one thing I would point out is that you see that the enrollment is starting to go down in the high schools. So Horn High is under 900 students right at this moment, and Law is just slightly over 900.
Questions on this? Yes, Ms. Federico?
Thank you. So the numbers on this page are only students, right? There's no
Staffing.
count of staffing on this page. Okay.
Any other questions?
It's,
Yes, Mr. Jagosinski?
law appears to be going down where foreign is holding steady. I thought that the increase in students was on the law side of Milford as opposed to the foreign side of Milford.
Traditionally, that has been the case. So this may be a year where you just have a smaller class that's moving up. So for
Right.
example, I know that next year, Harborside, the biggest class is in the 8th grade this year, So when
Right.
those kids move forward, we'll see a jump, and then it's going to drop back down again. So I think that that's some of the fluctuation that we're seeing. But if you look at, so I'm presuming you're thinking in terms of the NASDAQ projection.
Right.
And you're right that Law is projected to have more. The west side of town is projected to have higher numbers than the east side of town.
Well, foreign this year actually has 909 versus Law's 916, according to the budget book.
That's the current enrollment you're talking about.
Yeah,
That was October 1.
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Well,
And this is projected enrollment, so
I'm sorry.
so foreign has gone down.
Well, it's the current enrollment as of today.
Okay,
Projected for next year.
projected for next year as of today. Yes, Mr.
If I might, that means at the high school, the seniors shown here are today's juniors that you're projecting.
Correct.
Okay. The other observation is that of those who have signed up to come in and who may be coming from other schools that normally students don't attend here, it's always also possible that some parents may enroll as a placeholder while they continue their search for decision-making,
You may.
so that those numbers might turn around and go back down again, and not you know, you may not end up with all the students who are currently. And then on the other hand, there would be some who make their decision late and then at the last minute come in and say, we're coming here.
Right.
So a lot of uncertainty.
One thing to know, if you look at that 8th grade number at 499, if you look back over the past 10 years, you'll see a nutrition rate from 8th to 9th grade somewhere between 12 to 17% on any given year. So, you know, 10% would be 50, so you can guess somewhere between 60 and 75 students off of that 500 number typically don't get into 9th grade. We, through whatever, going to other schools, going to magnet schools, et cetera.
Well, we got Laurel and Hall right here.
Correct.
And
Private schools, there's a number of opportunities.
Number of private high schools.
And that's true in pretty much every district I've worked in. It's a typical attrition rate.
Other questions? Yes, Ms. Federico?
You know, I'll just add to Dr. Fieser's comment about the high school enrollment going down. You can see, as you flip through the pages on the elementary page, you know, each class size hovers around 400 to 420. And on the middle school and high school page, they're hovering around 450 to 500. So we can, if we look at the elementary page, we kind of gives us an idea of where things are going.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, is that it? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to, I don't know if there's anybody here for public comment tonight, but I'll read the public comment statement. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with the Milford Public School System. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes, and please note, public comment at tonight's meeting, which is a committee of the whole meeting, is limited to agenda items only, and our one agenda item this evening was the adoption of our budget. If you care to address the board, please state your name and address for the record. Does anybody care to address the board this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Adjourn. We're going to go to the assistant superintendent's conference.
We're done in here. Yeah, we're done in here for the evening.